Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1854A, and today's date is April 29th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Deep State and Central Bank Resisting Trump Pushing for Change. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about crypto, stocks, binary options, gold. There has never been a better time in history to trade these financial instruments. Trade Genius over the last 30 days has netted its traders over 50% on their money from spot-on trades. If you've never traded before and want to take advantage of these types of profits every day in the market, I urge you to sign up for one of the many Trade Genius online educational courses. Right now, through April, for their Easter specials, you can save 50% off their bundled specials or use their promo code Easter for 40% off all non-bundled items. Check out TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Tell them X22 sent you. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, Trump and his administration, they've been changing rules for the Federal Reserve, and the bad guys within the Federal Reserve, well, they're pushing back and they don't want to follow the new rules. And you can see there's a battle going on between what Trump and his administration wants to do and how they want to restructure the Fed. And they're starting off with these beginning phases of, okay, we're changing laws here. You need to follow this. But guess what? They don't want to do this. We're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But first, I wanted to talk about what is happening in the economy. And we know that there's two things happening in the economy. One, we have the central bank economy, which Trump is trying to keep alive long enough so he can get reelected. The other thing he's doing is he's changing everything that we know about the economy, because the economy is based on the central bank system. We are going to be moving out of the central bank system into a people's economy, where people control the economy, not a private organization. But what we see happening is that personal spending, it has gone up by 0.9%. Now, that's pretty good. People are going out there, they're feeling comfortable, they're going out and they're spending. The problem is that people are taking their currency out of the banking system, their savings, and they're using it to spend, which means they're not bringing in enough where they can save and spend at the same time. Now, this is the biggest rise since August 2009. I mean, on a year-over-year basis, spending has accelerated beyond income growth once again. So people are out there spending, and income growth is not keeping up. Now, this is going to be a problem moving forward, but this is how the central bank system works. In the beginning, when we're coming off a sound money system where we're connected to gold, well, the central bank creates a lot of currency, which creates inflation. People think that they have a lot more than they really do. And they see their house price go up. They see their wages go up. They see a lot of things happening. So they feel good in the beginning stages. And during this period of time, the central bank then has to introduce credit, and they feel even better. But at the end stage of the central bank system, wages, well, they really don't move anywhere. They pretty much stay flat, and a lot of times they decline. Why? Because all the high-paying jobs were moved out of this country. The reason for this is because the central bank system only lasts for a certain period of time, and what they need to do is they need to shift everything to another country. And this is what they were planning to do. They were planning to shift everything out of the United States. Trump is doing the opposite of what the central bank wants. He's bringing everything back to this country. He's doing everything the opposite the deep state was trying to do. He's bringing manufacturing back. He's deregulating. He's making it a better environment so businesses can do business in the United States. And once they do this, guess what happens? Other businesses open. But we need to get out of the central bank system. So Trump, he has this mission where he needs to keep the central bank system operational. And this is what he's doing right now. This is his plan. At the same time, he needs to start bringing and deregulating and changing the laws so corporations, manufacturers, they all look at this and say, you know something, we want to come back here. This is the right environment for us. And he's doing this. But he needs to keep the system alive. And this is what he's trying to do. Actually, he is doing it. He's keeping the system alive, and the mainstream media, the deep state, they can't even touch the economy. I mean, think about it. They don't even know what to do. Every time something happens, they go, oh, you know what? The economy is going to be failing. Oh, we see a recession in 2020. Oh, we see the government shutdown, and this is going to have a lasting effect on the economy. I mean, think about this. Every single time these economic pundits are out there, Trump has proven that what he is saying is right and what they're saying is completely wrong. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that economists were warning that Trump's government shutdown, which extended into late January, would wreak havoc on an already struggling economy. Boy, were they right. Because the GDP numbers came in as 3.2%. They were completely wrong. They're saying that the economy, it's gearing up for a major slowdown. Now, do you really think it's going to slow down? We talked about this in length. Trump has the magic wand. Every time the mainstream media, these economists come out and say this is what's going to happen, it's not. The opposite is going to happen. Just go back in time for a second. Think about the economists, the mainstream media, and we talked about this in length before Trump was even in the picture. Every time Obama and the other politicians are out there, they will tell you how great the economy is doing. Even though it's terrible, the economy is fantastic. Look, we hit 1% GDP. Look, the economy is fantastic. We're at 8% unemployment. Believe us, the stock market is going up. That's where you should be looking. And then what happens? The deep state, the central banks, they bring the economy down while the mainstream media is telling us how great the economy is doing. Well, how did this happen? Go back to 2008. During 2008, Bernanke was asked, do you forecast any recession coming up? No, we're not forecasting everything. Everything is contained. It's fantastic. The mainstream media, everything looks good. The economy is slowing a little bit, but looks great, and it's going to be picking up once again. During Obama, they told us that this is going to be a new normal. This is how the economy is going to be forever. Get used to it. Now here we have Trump. Trump economy is doing fantastic. The mainstream media, they're out there saying, no, it isn't. It's going to fall apart any second. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the mainstream media knows what's going to happen? No. Trump is controlling everything. This time, it is different. Now, what's very interesting, we know that Trump, he is pushing for change in the Federal Reserve. We know this because of Q. We know this because he has a lot of seats open on the Federal Reserve. And Trump and the Federal Reserve, they continue to clash over interest rates. But another simmering dispute concerns the regulatory burden the Federal Reserve and other agencies impose on banks. This latest problem involves one of the costliest provisions of the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. This is the Volker Rule. It is an edict that generally forbids banks from using their own capital to trade in securities or investment in hedge funds and private equity funds. It posed such a huge burden for small and mid-sized banks that last year, Trump signed a bipartisan legislation to relieve those institutions from the restrictions. Yet, 1 year later, the Federal Reserve and 4 other regulatory agencies are defying the White House and Congress by not implementing the full relief from the Volcker Rule prescribed in the law, leaving the mainstream banks mired in red tape that is hindering their efforts to serve consumers and small businesses. Like much of Dodd-Frank, the Volcker Rule was a very flawed and unnecessary government response to the financial crisis. While it was supposed to target the risky trading of Wall Street, in reality, it regulates banks regardless of their size or their extent of their trading activity. This includes many small institutions that engage in little to no asset trading. It imposed substantial burdens on those institutions. This is why Trump, along with Republicans and, yes, Democrats, they signed into law the Economic Growth Regulatory Relief and Consumer Protection Act of 2018. The legislation has a provision to provide relief from the Volcker Rule, mirroring a Treasury Department report that recommended lifting it off of small and mid-sized banks, as well as banks of all sizes that engage in little asset trading. It is one of the key legislative victories of Trump, crowning jewel for his record as one of the most deregulatory commanders-in-chief in modern history. Ironically, despite the reluctance of the Federal Reserve to follow the law, Powell has expressed what? Support for providing relief. He testified before Congress 2 years ago that the Federal Reserve would support a significant tailoring of the application of the Volker Rule so that it falls on the banks that have the biggest trading books. Yet, this is precisely the kind of reform that Congress provided and which the Federal Reserve is refusing to follow through on. No matter how powerful the Federal Reserve is and other regulatory agencies, they do not have the authority to impose a regulation that conflicts with the law. Indeed, that is an illegal encroachment on the legislative authority of Congress. Do you think Trump is going to use this against the central bank? The central bank, they're going to be pushing back against Trump at every turn. And you can see that Trump needs to put more people on the board, and he has to take control of the Federal Reserve. And this is where he is moving. This is the plan. Now, the IMF is out there, and they're saying global developments are affecting the outlook for this year, namely the slowdown in growth, especially on trade, the volatility in the oil price, as well as the global financing conditions. And this is coming from Jihad Azur. This is the IMF Director of Middle East and Central Asia. He's saying the Regional Economic Outlook Report is saying that there's going to be problems in the Middle East. Now that's very interesting because there are going to be problems in the Middle East. And it's not what everyone thinks. It's not war. It's not regime change by the United States. What's going to happen in the Middle East is that the people are going to take back their country. What's going to happen in the Middle East is that everything the deep state did, where they had regime change in every country, where they were fighting off all those people that didn't want a puppet government, now everything is starting to fall apart. Everything that the deep state has done is going to be reversed, which means once the people take control of their countries, they will no longer use the petrodollar. They will sell the oil using whatever currency, maybe gold, silver, doesn't matter. They will no longer use the petrodollar. And this is what the central banks are talking about. The days of the reserve currency, which is hooked to oil in the Middle East, that is coming to an end. Everything that they put together in the 70s is now coming to an end. Now, the central banks, the deep state, they had a plan for this. There was going to be an event. Everything was going to be switched away from the United States, and they were going to restart this entire system. Now, they don't have this event. This is a problem. The central banks are trying to figure out and trying to control the narrative and explain what is about to happen. They can't explain the slowing growth. They can't explain why all this is happening. Yes, they're using Trump right now to blame this on, but soon, once the China deal is made, and a couple months after that, once the tariffs are dropped or reduced, they can't even use that. And we know that the tariffs have nothing to do with the slowing economy. The slowing economy is the central bank system that they created. Their system was never meant to last this long. Their system is driven by debt. And when you continually pile on debt, think about a household. If you add debt, and your income stays the same, what happens? It collapses. If you have a business and they keep adding debt and their sales and everything else that's coming in stays the same, but they keep adding debt, what happens? It fails. Look at all the business that we've seen fail. Toys R Us and Circuit City and the rest. What happened to them? They all had to go bankrupt. Why? A lot of debt, no sales. What happens to the central bank system? They keep adding debt. It grows and it grows and it grows. And guess what? The population of the world cannot support this debt. Why do you think they're looking for more taxes? Why do you think they want carbon tax? Why do you think they want other taxes? Because this is the only way they can keep their system going. plus keep the people enslaved. Their system is coming to an end. Trump has already made changes, and they're resisting the change. But this is good, because he's going to use this against them in the future. And he's going to show that the Federal Reserve is not following the law. How do we have a system in place that's not following what the people want? Think about that for a second. Congress on both sides passed a law, and the Federal Reserve doesn't want to follow it. Gee, is he setting them up for an audit? I believe so. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.